the annals of American sports, few names shine with the same brilliance as Ted Williams. He was not only celebrated as the greatest hitter ever to grace a baseball field, but also revered as a soldier, a patriot, and a figure who embodied the ideals of an entire generation. Yet behind the heroic image of a man who commanded stadiums with his bat and served fearlessly in 2 wars, lies a mystery that chills the soul. After his death in 2002, instead of being laid to rest in the dignified peace that most fans expected, Williams's body was whisked away to a cryonics lab, suspended in steel canisters filled with liquid nitrogen, awaiting a future when science might call him back. Was this his wish, a final gamble against mortality, or was it the manipulation of those around him, driven by greed, ambition, or desperation? What unfolded was not simply the closing chapter of a legend, but a tale of family conflict, ethical dilemmas, and sensational revelations that transformed a national hero into a haunting enigma. To understand Ted Williams today is to confront not just the glory of his life, but the chilling controversy that followed him into death. Ted Williams' story begins long before the cold steel chamber where his body lies today. Born in 1918, he came into the world in an era when baseball was already becoming America's pastime, yet few could have imagined that a boy from San Diego would redefine what it meant to be a hitter. From an early age, Williams displayed an obsession with the art of batting that bordered on the scientific. He studied swings, angles, and timing with the precision of a mathematician, training endlessly in sandlots, often sacrificing friendships and leisure because he believed that perfection demanded isolation. By the time he entered the major leagues with the Boston Red Sox in 1939, his reputation preceded him. This was no ordinary rookie, but a young man destined to chase immortality in baseball's record books. Williams quickly proved the hype was justified. His swing was poetry in motion, a fluid yet powerful arc that punished pitchers mercilessly. Over his career, he amassed 19 All-Star selections, 2 Most Valuable Player awards, and an achievement so rare it has become legend, 2 Triple Crowns, signifying he led the league in batting average, home runs, and runs batted in during the same season. But perhaps his most enduring accomplishment is one that has remained untouched for more than 8 decades. His .406 batting average in 1941, the last time any player finished a season above 400. That single number has come to symbolize the pinnacle of hitting, a standard no one has reached since. It was not only about his physical gifts, but also his relentless mental discipline. Williams understood hitting as an intellectual craft, treating every at-bat like a duel of wits, a contest between his preparation and the pitcher's strategy. Yet what set Williams apart was that his legend extended far beyond the diamond. When World War II erupted, at the height of his career, Williams put baseball aside to serve his country as a naval aviator. He trained pilots, mastered the art of flying fighter planes, and sacrificed prime playing years for a duty that many athletes might have avoided. Years later, when the Korean War began, he once again answered the call, flying combat missions despite already being established as a superstar. He nearly lost his life in a fiery crash landing, yet returned to baseball with the same unyielding spirit. Few athletes can claim to have been not only champions in their sport, but also warriors in battle. Alongside figures like Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson, and Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams emerged not just as a sports icon, but as an American hero whose story embodied courage, sacrifice, and excellence. But as history often teaches, legends are not immune to tragedy. When Williams passed away in July 2002, at the age of 83, the nation mourned. Fans expected tributes, statues, and perhaps his ashes scattered at sea, fitting for a man who loved fishing almost as much as baseball. Instead, whispers began to circulate. Ted Williams's body had not been cremated as some believed, but had been transported to Alcor Life Extension Foundation in Arizona, a cryonics laboratory that specialized in freezing the dead in hopes of future revival. What had been a moment of collective remembrance turned overnight into one of controversy, sparking headlines that shocked not only the sports world but the broader public. Cryonics itself has long hovered between science and science fiction. Proponents argue that by cooling the body to ultra-low temperatures and preserving cells in a vitrified state, humanity may one day resurrect the dead once technology advances enough to repair damage and cure the diseases that cause death in the first place. Critics, however, dismiss the practice as pseudoscience, more akin to wishful thinking than legitimate medicine. The revelation that Ted Williams, a man synonymous with discipline and logic, had allegedly chosen this path raised eyebrows. Did he truly believe in such an uncertain gamble, or was someone else orchestrating this? At the center of the storm was John Henry Williams, Ted's son, who had long lived in his father's shadow. In Ted's final years, John Henry positioned himself as both caretaker and advocate, but also faced accusations of exploitation. Reports emerged that he had pressured his father to sign thousands of autographs for money, and more controversially, that he had coerced or manipulated him into agreeing to cryonics. Allegations of forged signatures and dubious family agreements surfaced, igniting legal battles between siblings. Ted's daughter, Bobby Jo, insisted that her father's true wish was cremation, citing an earlier will that requested his ashes be scattered in the Florida Keys. John Henry and his half-sister Claudia, however, presented a note, allegedly signed by Ted, declaring that he wanted to be preserved cryonically. The handwriting was contested, the circumstances murky, and the family found itself torn apart in a courtroom spectacle. The legal questions transcended one family's conflict. They touched on deeper ethical and societal issues. What does it mean to have autonomy over one's body after death? Can hastily scribbled notes override a formal will? And in the case of cryonics, which the law barely addresses, who decides whether it is a scientific choice or a form of desecration? In America, the right to die has often been debated in the context of assisted suicide or medical withdrawal of life support, but rarely in the surreal domain of freezing bodies for future resurrection. Ted Williams, unwillingly or not, became a case study for these uncharted waters. The controversy intensified when disturbing allegations emerged from within Alcor itself. A former employee, Larry Johnson, published a tell-all account claiming that Williams's remains were mishandled in grotesque ways. His head allegedly struck with a wrench to separate it from the body, his skull damaged, his remains stored in crude containers like tuna cans, and his DNA samples misplaced. Whether exaggerated or not, these revelations horrified the public. The image of the splendid Splinter, once celebrated for his elegant swing, was replaced in the media with nightmarish depictions of a dismembered corpse subjected to experimental indignities. What began as admiration for a sports legend ended as a national scandal, tarnishing his memory. The outcry revealed a truth about how society treats its icons. While alive, legends are revered. Once gone, their bodies and legacies become commodities, contested in courts, exploited by relatives, or sensationalized by tabloids. Williams joined a long line of celebrities, Marilyn Monroe, Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, whose deaths sparked as much intrigue as their lives. But unlike others, his body itself became the battleground. Cryonics, in theory, represents humanity's refusal to accept mortality. It echoes religious notions of resurrection, promising a second life if only one believes and invests enough. For some, like the community that supports cryonics, it is an act of hope. Even a 1 in a million chance of revival is better than none. For others, it is hubris, a denial of the natural order. In Williams' case, the tension between these perspectives was amplified because he had been a man defined by discipline, focus, and realism. Did such a man truly buy into an uncertain dream of immortality, or had his name been co-opted by others with more to gain than lose? As years passed, the saga grew even darker. John Henry Williams himself died in 2004 of leukemia at just 35, leaving behind unresolved disputes and intensifying suspicions that his father's cryonic preservation had been more about his desires than Ted's. Bobby Jo, despite her efforts, failed to overturn the arrangement, and Ted Williams remained in Alcor's facility, frozen in controversy as much as in nitrogen. The debates subsided in public discourse, but the haunting image persisted. A national hero trapped not only in history, but in a steel cylinder, his memory forever complicated. And yet, when reflecting on Ted Williams, it is crucial to remember what endures beyond scandal. His swing remains immortal in highlight reels. His .406 average still inspires hitters to chase an impossible dream. His sacrifice in war still resonates as a testament to courage. Cryonics may dominate the headlines, but the true measure of his life lies in what he gave to the world, not in what was done to him after death. Williams's story reminds us that immortality is not achieved by defying death with machines, but by leaving a legacy so profound that generations continue to speak his name. In the end, the story of Ted Williams is not truly about cryonics, lawsuits, or scandal, though those details have forever colored his memory. It is about a man who lived at the outer limits of human excellence, who chased perfection with a bat, who risked his life in war, and who inspired millions with his relentless spirit. The frozen steel chamber may hold his body, but his legacy cannot be contained within it. The true immortality of Ted Williams lies in the awe of every fan who recalls the crack of his bat, in the history books that revere his achievements, and in the lesson that greatness is built on sacrifice as much as talent. Yet his posthumous controversy forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How do we honor the dead? How do we protect their wishes? And how do we reconcile our yearning for immortality with the dignity of human life? Williams's saga lingers as both inspiration and cautionary tale, a reminder that no legend, however mighty, escapes the complexities of family, ambition, and mortality. His swing endures as flawless, but his final chapter warns us that even heroes are vulnerable when life's game is over.